Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Brad Gothier, and today we're going to be talking about a topic I get asked a lot about, and that's online security. And it's no secret that there's a lot of hacking and a lot of malicious activity that happens these days, and it's getting trickier and trickier to protect yourself online. And so I thought I'd just do a video on some of the tools and tactics that I've employed to make sure that I'm as secure as possible when I go about my daily work on the internet. A lot of the tools that I'm going to go over are stuff that you may not need to put in place right away, but over time, they're really going to be incredibly valuable to have in your arsenal of software that you use on a daily basis. And some of them, they might be overkill. Some of them might be an immediate necessity right now. But regardless, it's really good to at least know about them. And then on the flip side, it's one of those things that once you have in place, it's set. And so it might actually make your life more productive. It might ensure that you don't get hacked. There's a lot of benefits to why you'd want to use some of these newer software out there. And so first off, you really want to make sure that you have some of the fundamentals in place when you're looking at securing yourself online. I'll show you one thing that you should always look for. This is the company that my partner and I run, sitecast.com, and I'm just showing that to show off that there is this little lock up in the URL bar. You always want to make sure that you either see HTTPS and this lock, or if it's only HTTP, what ends up happening is that it means that you're not going to an encrypted website. And so what that means is that any of your activity that you do online, anything that you do on your computer that goes to some other server somewhere, if it's not encrypted, there's a lot of people in between that could potentially have some malicious intent. So that's your internet service provider, that's the hosting company, that's a lot of, depending on where that website's hosted, it might go into other countries, it might go into all sorts of different areas that you don't know about. And so the way to combat that is by using an encrypted website, and that starts with that HTTPS, and when the browser has the lock there. And when it's encrypted, what it's going to show is it's just going to be an unreadable information for any of the people that's in between you visiting the website and that server that it lives on. So it's just really important to set that foundation. Another area that is really important is to have the right browser. And right now I'm using the Mozilla browser, but I personally really love Brave. And so what Brave does is Brave is relatively new, and it's actually created by the guy that created JavaScript. And I think that he knows what he's doing. He's part of Mozilla. And so it's a really powerful browser that makes sure that you are safe and secure when you're going on the internet. One of the things that I'm trying to eliminate more and more from my life is relying on some of the much larger tech companies like Google and Amazon and whatnot. And the most popular browser is Chrome. And Chrome is there's no doubt about it, it's a really great browser, but at the same time, do you really want to be sending your information to Google? And so with Brave, it's built on top of some of the same internals that Chrome and Firefox use, but at the same time, it's going to be just a much better browsing experience. And they're kind of the underdog in this browser battle, and so I want to support the underdog. But the other super popular one, which is what I'm using for this video, is Mozilla. Mozilla Firefox has been around for a long time. It's battle tested, and they're super focused on your privacy. And these two, between Brave and Mozilla, you're going to really find a really secure browsing experience. The other one that you might not have heard of is called Tor. And so Tor takes it to a whole nother level. So what Tor does is that allows you to access websites through intermediaries that essentially prevent anybody from seeing where you're going. And you might have heard of like the deep web. this is how to access the deep web. I'm not going to get into that. There's a lot of crazy bad stuff on the deep web. There's a lot of great stuff on the deep web. But this Tor is how you access the deep web. But those are the browsers that I recommend. I personally would recommend Brave, but you can also use Mozilla Firefox if you choose. It's the one that's been around the longest, so it's probably going to be the best experience. But I like going for the underdog. Another area, if you do have to say use Chrome or you have to use some of the more mainstream browsers, there's an extension called Adblock, and there's all sorts of different versions of it. But essentially what Adblock does is it prevents a lot of the malicious ads that would typically get you hacked. It blocks all those. It doesn't block every ad, but it blocks the vast majority of the ones that would really do damage. And that's one of the easiest ways for an attacker to get into your site, because when you go to, say, New York Times, if for some reason they're serving up an ad that ad network got hacked, you might think that you're all safe and secure on New York Times, but at the same time, that ad is running malicious code on your computer. And that's just something that you want to try to prevent. And I'm all for supporting ads by the little content providers that really need that money. And so that's Brave actually takes care of a lot of that stuff. So I just shoot for Brave. But if you absolutely have to do it, using Adblock or some sort of ad blocker is going to be your best bet. And so that's kind of the browser area. But then once you come from, so what we're going to do is we're going to go from kind of the outside all the way through the internals. And so the next area is when you connect to the internet, you might not think this, but you connect to an ISP, which is an internet service provider. And that could be Spectrum, that could be AT&T. There's a ton of different ISPs out there. But one thing that you might not know is that they know, even if it's encrypted, they know the websites you go to. So they can create a profile around you and essentially sell it to advertisers that they now know everything that you've gone to. So maybe you go to ESPN.com a lot. Maybe they now can start equating that to providing that information to some ad networks, knowing that you love sports, or you go to some tech websites, whatever it may be. You really got to watch what they can find out about you. And the way that you can do that is by routing all of your internet traffic through a VPN. And VPNs have been around for a long time, but a VPN is essentially it stands for virtual private network. But what it does is it routes all of your traffic through a server that will hopefully not store any logs or any information on you. And all the ISP can see is that it's coming from that VPN. So it really helps your privacy. And the two that I would recommend are both paid options. And the one is going to be NordVPN. NordVPN is really sweet. It works on your phone. It's just a really good option. And it allows you to choose what country you can go through. If you want to stick to your home country or another country, it allows you to route all of your traffic through it. And you won't really see much of a speed issue, even with all of the other extra routing. It's well worth the trade-off of that, a few extra milliseconds it might take to route your information through Germany or wherever you want it, a more private country. And so it's just such a better option. Another VPN that I like is ExpressVPN. That's another, it does the same thing as Nord basically. The main thing when you're picking out a VPN is that you just want to make sure that you're not using a free VPN, because anytime that you use anything that's free and you haven't figured out how they make money, if you don't know how they make money, they're usually making money off of your data. And so while you might use a free VPN that hides your browsing activity from your ISP, it's all that is offshooting your browsing activity to that VPN, and then that VPN can sell the information. So, do you trust the ISP that you pay $100 a month for, or do you trust this free VPN that might be selling it to ad networks? And so A paid VPN at least has a clear monetary strategy that you can somewhat assume that they're probably not also selling your data. They have a way to make money. And it's just in general, there's a common saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And there's been time and time again examples of where this happens, and you just want to really protect yourself, and a VPN is the way to do it. Okay, so with all of that, the next area is going to be passwords. So the keys to the castle are going to be your passwords. The more that you have your passwords locked down, the better. And I would say the safest way, but also the way that could really mess up, is to write down all of your passwords on a piece of paper that it's never been digital. But you have the chance of losing that paper, or you could have a house fire, or your dog could eat it. There's a bunch of stuff that could go wrong if you write down all your passwords. That, in essence, is the most secure way, but it's also a good way to lose all of your passwords. And so a way to do that is with a password manager. And there's a couple different password managers out in the market these days, and they all work pretty great. The one that is kind of the 800-pound gorilla is LastPass. And what it allows you to do is you have to just remember one password. And then from there, all of your passwords are encrypted in this little vault that they provide for you. And so it allows for you to have a unique password on every single device, or on every single account that you own. And like for us, I have hundreds of accounts, like through all of the coding that I do and the finance stuff and just all the different stuff that we do through our business. And if I had a different password that I had to write down or memorize, that would be incredible. On the flip side, what a lot of people do is when you have a bunch of accounts, they tend to reuse the same password, or maybe reuse it but then change like a number at the end or something. The problem with that is that if one of the systems that you use gets hacked and they didn't store the password properly, and they can now see what your password is, they can now go around to all of the other services and just try your password in different places. And so if you reuse the password, that's really, really dangerous. And so LastPass, and then there's another one called Keeper. Both of those allow for having a very secure password management process. And so either one of these are pretty good, and they all make sure that you have the security in place to really protect all of your accounts in different areas. The other thing to just consider is that your email password is probably the most important password. The email password is truly the keys to the castle. So think about this. So if someone gets your email password, they can go into your email, and now they can go in and they can search your email and find out what other accounts you have. So whatever that may be, they now know, because of marketing emails or whatever it may be, they know where else you have accounts, and they can go to those accounts and to those websites, hit forgot password, which typically sends over a reset link. And if they're in your email, they can go to all of your accounts, reset the password, and all of a sudden they have full control of all of your accounts. They can get into your Facebook account, they can get into your banking, they can get into all of them. And so you really, really want to make sure that, if at the very least you want to have the most secure email password possible, because those are really the keys to the castle. Another way to secure yourself with your logins is going to be with two-factor authentication. And you may have seen that sometimes when you log in and they text you or something, and they give you a 6-digit code, and you type that in, and then that just gives a second device that will help secure your login process even further. But what you ultimately want to do is you want to use something that is a little bit more secure. So there's two ways that can do it, probably the easiest. And there's either the Google Authenticator, which is an app that you can download to your phone, and that has been kind of the go-to way to do it for a long time. And what it does is every single app that you have that allows for two-factor is it will give you a 6-digit code that changes, I think, every 30 seconds or something like that. So that two-factor allows for just another device that's needed, so a malicious person can't get into your account without also having that other device. The problem with Google Authenticator, and I learned this the hard way, is that the second that you get a new phone is the second that you have to redo all of those things. So it's secure in that realm, but at the same time, it makes it a little tricky. So there's another option, and it's called Authy. It was recently bought by Twilio, and it's a really sweet app. And it does the same as Google Authenticator, but it allows for multiple devices. And so in theory, it's not as secure as Google Authenticator, but a lot of us aren't national targets for anything. We're just going about our lives, and we just need something a little bit more secure. So Authy is going to be probably your everyday solution for two-factor. That's just really, really solid. And again, you want to make sure you have a really strong password on this, because this would be the same if people could get into your two-factor. You're really asking for some trouble. The thing, though, is that the other way that two-factor often exists is if there is a text message sent to you, and that's a really common way for setting up two-factor super simple, where you just put in your phone, they text you a number, and then you type in that 6-digit number, and it proves that you are who you are. However, if you're a high target for hacking, or you're, say, a political activist or a politician, or just someone in the limelight, that is going to be really asking for a lot, because your phone number might be known by a lot of people. And so that phone number, there's a thing called a SIM swap. And so it's part of a social engineering hack that can happen. So say a malicious person calls into your cell phone provider, pretends that they are you, and gets them to give that person your SIM. So say they call in and say, hey, I lost my SIM card, can you send me a new one? And for some reason that representative actually allows for that. They now can put that SIM card into their phone and act as you. And so when they can then get the text messages that you are supposed to be getting, and then now all of a sudden they have your two-factor. So if you can prevent it, don't use the text messaging option for two-factor. Use one of those apps that I recommend. So another area would be the location services. So one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realize is that when you are using an app, or even if you aren't using the app, depending on your permissions that you've set in the settings of your phone, they can know exactly where you are. So if it's, say, Facebook, for instance, and Facebook, you have all the location services, even if you're not using the app, or it's Instagram, or one of those controlled by Facebook, Facebook is going to know everything about you. And so by turning the location services off, because they don't really need to know that information anyway, or sometimes it sometimes allows you to set it only when you're using the app. But at the very least, you want to make sure that it's off on any app that there's no reason for them to know where you are. So things like a map service, they probably need to know where you are to show where the map is. But things like Facebook, why do they really need to know where you are? So you just want to make sure, and you can do that with an iPhone, and you can also do that with the Android. There's location services. And so if you just look in the settings, I bet you'll be surprised of how many apps actually track your server or your location 24/7. So they know, so hypothetically, say you go to these different places and then someone else goes to these places. What they can then see is, okay, this phone was over here, this phone was over here, but it comes to the same place each time. Those two people probably know about you or know each other. And so some of these ad networks and these social networks and just a lot of these data companies can actually create these like shadow profiles of you based on all of this information that that you didn't know that you're providing. And it's the same with like, say you took a picture and you uploaded it, a picture has all of the location information in the EXIF data. And so that picture shows all of the information of where you were. That's why, like, if you post a picture and it like says, do you want to say that you were in Madison, Wisconsin? It knows that because of the EXIF data. And so all of that information, these systems are so powerful now that they can create all these shadow profiles based around stuff that you don't realize that you're providing them. And so it's really important to try to do as much as you can to not give them that information. They're going to get a ton of information even if you try. I personally try not to give any information, and I guarantee that they have a lot of information on me. Okay, so speaking of Facebook, here's one that there's a couple things with regard to social networks, especially Facebook, Instagram, possibly WhatsApp, like the Facebook ecosystem. There's a couple others that I trust more. Twitter, I think, is a little bit better in their data policies, but all of them have so much information on you. And so a couple different things to do is, one, never use the actual app that they provide you. So like with Facebook, on a website or on a desktop, you can just go to the website right in a browser. But on the phone, they always want you to download the app. And granted, the app experience is better than the web version, but you can just go to the web browser on your phone and access Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or any of them. It's a pretty good browsing experience. However, this is my own opinion, but I feel like they purposely don't improve those apps, the web app versions, as much as they do the actual mobile app version, because they want people to download the mobile app because they can track you more. And so by using the web, they don't get as much information. And so they're not trying to make that experience as good as it possibly can be. So it's a trade-off, but I would prefer having Facebook not know everything about me. And so I just go on the web version, usually through a VPN, always through just the browser, depending on, or no matter what device I use. And so that just allows for a really good way to keep my privacy from these bigger companies. Because what happens is, once Facebook has that information, they then are able to use that information and sell that to other data companies. Again, going back to, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And so it's just something that's really important to keep in mind, that Facebook doesn't make their money off of you posting. It makes the money off of the things you've liked, the places you've gone, the photos you've uploaded, where those were, all of that information, your occupation, all of that information goes into how they make money. Another way is that Facebook has a lot of tentacles out on the web, and what happens is if someone is like a business is using Facebook for marketing, there's different pixels. And so it's not just Facebook. I know I'm picking on Facebook, but they're kind of the big offender of this. But a ton of different platforms use these pixels that will report back to the mothership of that you are at those websites. And so what you can do is, if you're using a VPN and all that kind of stuff, you can also then log out of your Facebook account. And by logging out, when you go to those other places, it just makes it a little bit harder for them to complete the picture of where you are. But if you're logged in to Facebook and you go somewhere else that has that pixel, Facebook obviously knows that you went to that website. And you'd be surprised of how many websites Facebook has that pixel, because any company that advertises on Facebook has that pixel installed. So they really, really know a lot about you. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. And then the final point I'm going to say about all of these is that when it comes to creating the account, you want to have different emails that you use. So for when you create an account on something like Facebook, you might not want to use the same email that you use for personal communication or for your company or whatever it is. And so there's different tiers of email that you can use. And one of the most secure I don't know if it's the most secure, but it's definitely up there, and I highly recommend it. It's called Proton Mail, and Proton Mail is one that I would recommend for like the accounts or the communication that you want to be the most secure. And it might not be the one that you put on your business card, but it's the one that maybe you use for banking, or you use for talking to a couple of your colleagues that you have to have a private conversation that others can't see. Proton Mail is going to be your best bet, and that's going to be super encrypted and secure. So that's a good one. And then I know I said that I'm trying to eliminate Google from my life, but sometimes you gotta have them. And so your everyday email, if you're still using like AOL or whatever it is for Hotmail, well, Hotmail is kind of under Microsoft. So, but in general, I really like Gmail for business and just everyday personal email. What it allows for is Gmail allows for you to have a custom domain. So whatever your business company is, your domain for that, you can use right through Gmail. And it's Gmail and Google in the grand scheme of things are, they're not that malicious of a company, in my opinion. They definitely have their big brother moments, but for the most part, your everyday communication can be through Gmail. But again, you want to make sure that you probably have 2 different emails set up. One would be for your everyday mail that it goes on your business card or the everyday person knows. And then you're going to have the one that might be just for personal, that is more junk email. So signing up for newsletters or whatnot. And because what happens is if a newsletter gets hacked, and a newsletter system or something, and they see that email in there, and maybe even your password or what, like you never know what they have. If they get hacked, they now see your email, and so it at least gives you another layer. So it's good to you don't want to complicate your life, but it's good to have multiple different emails. And then there's the final one. Say you're just signing up for something to test it out, or you're not too excited about giving them your email. You can actually create a fake. It's kind of fake email, but it's like a temporary email, and you can do that. There's a bunch of different ones that are out there, but Maildrop is a quick way. You can create an email just for whatever you type something in here, and then it creates it. And so it's definitely not something you want to use for security or whatever. But if you just need an email to sign up for something, to see how it works or whatever, this is a really good option as well. So, this is the one that will prevent you from getting all that spam if you have to put in an email for something. Okay, so that's really the account side of things, where when you're creating accounts, you're using different services online. Those are all those different options that you can use. On kind of a different note, but it still goes along with security, is cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these are becoming incredibly popular. And one of the things that people don't know is that if you don't own the keys to your crypto, and I'll make another video about all this stuff. I won't go too deep, but I just want to make you aware that if your crypto is on an exchange, whether that's Coinbase or Gemini or Binance or whatever all of the different crypto exchanges are, it's just asking to be hacked, whether they hack the actual platform, or they hack your email, or they get in somehow. You're just asking for them to offload it, and there's no FDIC, there's no backing whatsoever to crypto. And so if someone takes it, it's gone. And there's a couple different ways that you can protect yourself, and that way is by having your own wallet. And there's a wallet called Ledger that is fairly secure. And then there's a Cold Card. There's just different ways to put your crypto onto a hardware wallet that is not connected to the internet at any given time. So it just makes it more secure. I'm not going to go too deep into it because it's kind of off topic, but it definitely applies to what is becoming a lot more popular. But I'll probably make another video about that in the future. So then another thing is the making sure that your devices are updated, and having the device updated is one of the best ways, because a lot of the reasons why there's new updates on phones and computers and browsers and all that is because there's some sort of bug or flaw that someone found. And a lot of times the updates are just a new feature or something, but there's always security enhancements that come along with the updates. So you always want to make sure that all of your devices are updated. And so you just want to make sure either turn it on automatic or something. So just something to really, really keep in mind. And you can do that on iPhones, Androids. You can check the version. And then, so let me just go over a couple more, and then we'll send you on your way. So the final one would be, I know Google and Bing are really the most popular search engines, but what I personally use is DuckDuckGo, and it has a funny name, but it has a security first perspective on how they provide you the search results. So you might wonder why Google provides such great results. Is because Google knows so much about you, and Google knows they'll take into consideration a ton of additional information, and it does provide probably the best results, but that comes at the cost of your privacy. And so DuckDuckGo doesn't provide any tracking whatsoever of your searches. It blocks the trackers, it encrypts everything. And so DuckDuckGo is a really good option to search the internet privately. And then the final thing here is going to be the messaging. So I'm assuming everyone texts, everyone uses like Facebook Messenger and all of that. I try to stay away from things like Facebook Messenger, because even if they say it's encrypted, like WhatsApp and stuff like that, I don't really trust them that much. And so really the only option in my mind to safely communicate with other people and not be able to be seen is an app called Signal. Signal is getting more and more popular these days, now that people are learning more about the Big Brother aspect of the internet. And so Signal, what that does is it provides end-to-end encryption. And end-to-end encryption means that only you and the receiver can see it. Not Signal, not your ISP, not anybody in between. Only the sender and the receiver can see the message. Everything else in between is just going to be some unreadable, encrypted set of just random characters, basically. And so Signal is going to be a really good way for you to make sure that you are having secure messaging. One other way that if it's an iPhone to an iPhone, iMessage is pretty secure as well. I think that Apple has done a really good job to try to protect users. And so iMessage, if you're talking to another iOS user, you're probably safe that way. But if you're doing like iOS to Android, or iOS to some other thing, or Android to some unknown thing, I would always try to ask that other party to use Signal, because you just know that Big Brother isn't going to be watching. So it's just something that you really want to make sure that you make sure that people can't see into your communication. And I highly doubt you're doing anything malicious, but why would you want someone else seeing what you said? And even if, I guess on a grander scheme of all this, is there's rarely going to be someone that's actually just like listening into what you're saying or reading your messages, or whatever it is. It's going to be algorithms, and those algorithms, they're not looking at you directly. So there's a joke that like people are just sitting there listening to your messages, but that's typically not the case. Maybe there is if you're under watch for some bad thing or whatever. But for the most part, it's going to be the algorithms. And those algorithms just fill out that shadow profile that I'm talking about, that ad networks and all of these larger companies can access that data. They can be sold that data, they can buy the data, and they can just use all of that information to learn more about you and to market products to you, to sell things that you might not even have thought you needed. And so just in general, it's really good to try to encrypt and just do all the things that I have mentioned in this video. And so with all that said, I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you learned something. And until next time, I appreciate you watching to the end. And if you haven't, please subscribe. If you like it, share it, whatever you can. Just get this message out. More and more people need to understand that it is incredibly vital to secure your online usage, and that your data is your data, and it's not anybody else's data to sell. So with that, good luck, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.